Images like these currently dominate the media coverage of the migration debate, with fear and security buttons being constantly pushed. How have we reached this stage that a single picture or a metaphor triggers for many people a largely negative story about refugees and migration? A story of who is involved, what the problem is, what the solutions are. Viewed through a communication lens, this is about frames and framing. Put simply, frames are stories we use to understand complex and challenging issues in life, like migration or climate change. When a new issue becomes part of the public discussion, we tune in to mainstream and social media, talk it through with friends, and adopt a certain position or frame on the issue. Once we commit to a single frame, we make it our go-to understanding on the issue, and over time, certain frames become highly valued community stories. This makes our attachment to them even stronger, and so they are very easily triggered. Progressives are not doing well in trying to challenge these prominent fear and security frames in the migration debate. When we meet a migration skeptic, we tend to argue facts and rights only, and we often get a dismissive, angry response. Many people say our approach comes across as arrogant and lectury, with audiences left feeling that we think them a bit stupid or even a bit racist. We seem to be stepping on some emotional landmines, and so we really need to understand what's going on if we want to better engage the public. We're living in a time of economic and political discontent with growing divisions in society. Many feel vulnerable and left behind. Populist politicians have exploited and heightened this unease and hijacked people's concerns, putting the blame firmly on one issue: migration. The danger is that any further mainstreaming of such a fear, invasion and threat narrative will limit acceptable policy responses to security, protection and exclusion. In response, it must be our job to separate the worries and concerns of these communities from this toxic blame narrative. So how do we go about doing this? There's a lot of experience in reframing practice to learn from. 1. Who to talk to. First, as advocates, we've tended to focus on attacking or undermining opponents on the strongly anti-immigrant side. But in most countries, there's a big group of people in the middle who are neither strongly pro nor anti, but are concerned and confused about many issues around migration. This group is often called the anxious or movable middle. If we want to change the debate and stop the mainstreaming of populism, we need to focus our efforts on engaging this group. Second, in any heightened conversation, we must deal with emotional tension at the beginning to make a connection. In practice, this means acknowledging the concerns of those we are engaging. Then they will be more open to a real dialogue. Third, we need to know how to open the conversation and build a bridge to more inclusive thinking. We can do this by identifying shared concerns and values between a more inclusive view and that of the movable middle. For example, an NGO partner working at the city level in the USA builds on the following messages. Most every American moves to go to college or work, and aspiring migrants are the same. Working for a living is a basic aspiration for all Americans, including new arrivals. Let migrants do this with the full protection of the Constitution and contribute to the growth of the economy and the country. But not everybody agrees with these ideas, and some advocates and campaigners are sceptical about this reframing approach. First, some think the approach is a weak response and means watering down the message. Instead, we should stick to our position. But we would say this is not about selling out, it's about sequencing. By acknowledging the concerns and fears of a new audience and being emotionally smart, we open the door for constructive dialogue. We can then have a full and frank discussion about the realities of migration. Second, some also think that reframing is just fancy public relations or word games. But as our example illustrates, reframing is not just wrapping our position in nice shiny paper. It's a chance to restructure the debate around common values and put new, positive frames on the table. And lastly, we always come back to the old favourite. If only people knew the facts, everything would be different. Unfortunately, a facts-only approach seems to be closing doors rather than opening dialogue. So it's time to try something different and not always be on the defensive. So let's restructure the debate. Lead the narrative, set the tone, break out of our own bubble and expand the circle by adding new lenses and new voices. And so shift the balance to make inclusion and aspiration, finding connections rather than magnifying differences. Practice shows that reframing works, and there is support from your peers. So let's experiment and learn together. And we'll help you connect and give you support and advice. How about starting with our toolkit?